Before we start, a warning. Some things in your home are not what they seem. Sometimes, the ordinary watches quietly. Sometimes, it learns. If you like stories that creep under your skin, hit subscribe. You'll want to be here for this one. This story is called The Voice in My Ceiling Fan. I first noticed it late one night, lying in bed, the ceiling fan humming above me. At first, I thought it was just the blades cutting through the dry air. Tick. Then I heard it whisper my name. Soft, careful, almost polite. I froze, listening. The whisper repeated once more, almost exactly like my voice would sound if I were calling myself across the room. My heart sank. I told myself it was the wind. Old fans creak. Old houses talk. The dentist started mimicking the rhythm of my breathing. Slow, steady, in, out. Every time I inhaled, I heard it inhale. Every exhale was mirrored perfectly. I rolled onto my side, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. Right. But the hum changed when I moved. It dipped lower, closer. I grabbed my phone to record, but the microphone picked up nothing. The fan kept whispering. I could hear it through my ears, through my skull. I tried to sleep with the light on. It didn't help. Its fan rotated lazily above me, whispering, learning, patient. Days passed. Every time I returned home, it knew I was there before I touched the switch. It moved faster when I entered the room, slower when I lingered, holding my breath, pausing my movements. Sometimes it copied my gestures, tilting, twisting, reaching from above. Once, I whispered back, "What do you want?" The T didn't answer immediately. Then the blade slowed. A cold draft brushed my face, and a voice, wet and hollow, replied inside my head, not my ears. Watching, learning, waiting. I shivered and pulled the blankets over my head. I didn't sleep well. Every fan in the house began sounding slightly wrong. Each rotation felt like fingers brushing against the ceiling. One night, I woke to find the fan still, but the blades rotated in shadow on the walls. It wasn't spinning, it was copying motion from somewhere else. I left the room, and the shadow stayed. I returned hours later, lights off, and it moved again. Following me, I tried disconnecting it. Unplugged, screws removed. It didn't matter. The hum returned, from somewhere I couldn't locate. Sometimes it whispered words I didn't understand. Sometimes it repeated what I had said days earlier. Exactly. The wrong order. The wrong tone. As if studying me. I stopped using fans altogether. Windows, vents, anything with air movement. It adapted. The pattern remained. One night, I dreamt it fell from the ceiling, spinning blades, but silent, hovering inches from my face. I woke screaming. The fan above me whispered my own scream. I moved out temporarily, came back weeks later. Everything seemed normal until I turned the light off. The fan hummed differently. It didn't mimic me anymore. It had learned to anticipate me. Now, I avoid my bedroom at night. The hum follows me through the house, patient, observing. I catch glimpses of shadows moving on the walls when no light is on, slow rotations that shouldn't exist. Sometimes, I hear my own voice whispering back to me from above. I never speak aloud anymore. I never move without thinking. The last time I went to bed, I could swear the blades slowed before I even entered. And when I lay down, I felt something spin beneath me. Not the fan. Something else. Learning. I keep telling myself, it's just air. Old wiring. Imagination. But every night, the hum follows me. And I know it's waiting for the moment I stop noticing. Before we start, a warning. Sometimes your home isn't just empty space. Sometimes it breathes, watches, waits. If you like discovering what lurks in familiar places, make sure you're subscribed. This one will crawl under your skin. Story is called The Fingers in My Washing Machine. I first noticed it when I was doing laundry late at night, and the drum of the machine sounded like it was moving against its own rhythm, not the spin cycle. The clothes inside shifted as if something was crawling through them, pushing against fabric in slow, deliberate patterns. I froze, hand hovering over the start button, listening. The tapping and scraping were soft but distinct, like fingers dragging along metal from inside. At first, I told myself it was just a stuck sock or a loose button caught in the drum. But the sound continued even after I emptied the machine. It only stopped when I left the laundry room, and resumed the second I returned. The next night, I tested it. I left the door open, nothing inside. The tapping began almost immediately. Short, precise, measured. I touched the rim. Cold. Nothing moved under my fingers. A hand. But the sound tapped faster, as if annoyed I'd dared to intervene. A tase. I tried recording it with my phone. The audio was silent. Scraping. No tapping. When I listened in the room itself, the sound was deafening. I stopped doing laundry at night. The machine waited, at first silent. Then subtle scratches appeared along the inner drum, thin and shallow, like someone had practiced tracing letters. I moved the machine a few inches to check underneath. Nothing. Not a single mark beyond what I had seen inside. Then the tapping began outside the machine, inside the room, inside the walls. A wet, subtle scraping that followed me wherever I walked. One night I muttered, "Who's there?" The sound paused, then tapped a rhythm back, almost like a response, almost like it understood. I tried to ignore it, but the rhythm changed when I entered the room, faster when I lingered, slower when I turned away. I began noticing small red marks on my fingers after using the machine, thin scratches, almost like measurements. Too deliberate to be coincidence. The tapping became more coordinated. I could almost hear a pattern forming. Not random, not chaotic, intentional. It learned my schedule. It waited for laundry nights. It pushed harder when I stayed late folding clothes, scraping and tapping in patterns that made my skin crawl. One morning, I opened the drum and noticed a single fingertip-shaped indentation in a shirt, pressed into the fabric as if someone had pushed from the inside. I tried leaving offerings, coins, small objects. Nothing changed. The sound persisted, adapting, growing patient. I started covering the drum with a towel. It muffled the noise but didn't stop it. Sometimes the tapping moved outside the machine, testing me. One night, I woke to the machine spinning. No power, no lights, just the sound of tapping inside, faster than normal, urgent, insistent. I never approached. I lay in bed, listening, slowed to a steady rhythm, like breathing. No, I do laundry only during the day. Even when I'm careful, I sometimes catch glimpses of shadows in the room corners, twisting, curling toward the drum. A T. I've learned not to look inside, not to touch. A T. Not to listen too closely. Always measuring, practicing, learning. And sometimes, it's in the quietest moments, I swear I hear it tap my name. This is halfway between zero. Before we begin, if you enjoy stories like this, take a second to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future uploads. Alright, on to our first story. It's titled, The House That Memorized Me. I moved into the house because it was cheap and because the landlord warned me it took time to get used to how it sounded at night. The first evening, I noticed the floors creaked a second after I stepped. It's like the house was replaying my movement instead of responding to it. So when I walked the hallway, the sound followed behind me, delayed, copying the rhythm of my steps with uncomfortable accuracy. I tested it by stopping suddenly, and the creak still came, finishing the step I never took. The mirrors inside were old and wavy, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was that they showed me walking through rooms I wasn't in. Bathroom mirror, I saw myself pass behind the shower curtain while I was still standing at the sink. I laughed it off until the house started doing it with sound too, replaying my coughs, my breathing, hours after I made them. Late at night, I'd hear myself pacing upstairs, even though I was sitting perfectly still on the couch below. I recorded audio on my phone, and every playback included footsteps I never heard while recording. The sounds weren't random, they followed my habits, my routines, like the house was practicing being me. One night, I heard my voice call my name from the spare bedroom, using the exact tone I use when I'm alone. Kay opened the door, and the room was empty, but warm, like someone had just stood there thinking, Kay. After that, doors began opening on their own, but only after I walked past them earlier in the day. KK. The house wasn't reacting, it was remembering. I stopped leaving for work, afraid of what it might do with the time alone, but that didn't help. Even while I slept, the house moved, replaying my midnight trips to the kitchen with perfect timing. I woke up one morning to find muddy footprints in the hallway, shaped exactly like mine, walking in reverse. The mirrors changed next, no longer showing reflections but reenactments, scenes from earlier days looping silently. I watched myself brush my teeth from 3 nights ago, then watched that version of me look directly at me. His mouth moved out of sync, whispering something I couldn't hear. Smashed the mirror, but the reflection kept going in the shards, continuing the scene without glass. The house began skipping steps, forming actions I hadn't done yet, doors opening before I reached them, lights turning on ahead of me. It was learning faster now. One evening, I heard the front door unlock, followed by my footsteps coming inside while I stood frozen in the kitchen. A version of me walked past the doorway, breathing hard, like it had rushed to get home first. I followed the sound into the living room and saw the couch already dented, warm where someone had just sat. The house creaked approvingly, settling, like a thing satisfied with its copy. That night, I heard my own voice upstairs saying it finally fit better this way. In the mirror, I saw myself unpacking boxes I hadn't opened yet, moving in permanently. The house stopped replaying me after that. Now it only plays the other one. And every time I try to leave, the door hesitates like it's waiting to see which of us belongs here more. Some closets aren't empty. Some corners hold things that wait silently, learning your habits. If you like discovering the strange hiding in plain sight, subscribe, you'll want to see this one. This story is called The Shadows in My Closet, and the corners seemed heavier, darker, like something was pressing just beyond the clothes. They didn't scatter when I blinked, didn't shimmer or flicker, simply waited, pooling in the corners, patient and quiet. So when I stepped closer, one stretched across the floor like a thin ribbon, pausing mid-motion, almost testing my reaction. I slammed the door shut and froze, the house quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. The feeling followed me into the hallway. The next night, I left the closet open. Shadows pooled along the shelves, settling between jackets and hanging shirts, perfectly still until I blinked. It twitched when I looked away, shifting just enough to be noticed in my peripheral vision. Away shined my phone flashlight into the closet. A new one had appeared, thicker, leaning slightly toward me as if curious about my reaction. They moved across reflective surfaces to mirrors, windows, the surface of my coffee table, always alert, always waiting. I whispered, "What do you want?" The shadows shifted together, and a low, hollow scraping echoed from the closet floor, like breathing, empty and wet. I tried to block the door with boxes and clothes, thrased through anyway, moving under and around obstacles, patient and precise. I began sleeping in the living room. The shadows followed, gathering in corners I thought were safe, leaning, observing. Occasionally, I caught glimmers of eyes, watching me. Red scratches appeared on my arms and hands, fine and deliberate, as though someone was practicing measurements on me while I slept. The shadows learned my schedule, waiting longer on nights I stayed late, shifting and stretching while I watched from afar. I stopped speaking aloud in the house. Sometimes I would see them in the reflections of dark windows, just outlines at first, then forms slowly bending toward me. I began locking doors I hadn't before. The shadows found ways around them, pooling beneath the gaps and creeping along thresholds. Every night, I hear subtle shifts and scrapes in the corners. One morning, I found a new shadow under my bed, perfectly crouched, waiting, patient, and calm, at ease and calm, as if they had practiced standing there without being noticed. Moved furniture to block the closet. They adapted, forming near the walls, along ceilings, always present. The closet door is always closed now. The shadows have their domain. I avoid the room. I avoid looking. But I know they are there, patient, learning, waiting for the moment I forget them entirely. And when I do, the face in my bathroom mirror never blinked. Before we start, let me ask you something. Have you ever stared at your reflection long enough for it to feel it's wrong? If stories like that pull you in, make sure you're subscribed, because this one still doesn't feel real to me. This is what happened. The first time I noticed it, I was brushing my teeth at midnight, half asleep, watching my reflection sway slightly as the bathroom fan rattled above me. My eyes looked tired, my skin looked pale, and everything felt normal until I realized my reflection wasn't blinking when I was. I blinked twice in a row, slow and deliberate, watching carefully, and my reflection stayed wide-eyed, staring straight through me like it was looking past my face. A cold wave rolled down my spine as I leaned closer to the mirror, searching for smudges, scratches, anything that could explain what I was seeing. The face in the glass leaned closer too, but its movement lagged behind mine, like a delayed video struggling to catch up. I raised my hand slowly, spreading my fingers, and the reflection copied me a second later, slightly off, slightly wrong. My heartbeat started thudding in my ears as I backed away, telling myself I was exhausted, dehydrated, probably hallucinating from staring too long. The next night, I checked again, pretending I didn't care, pretending I wasn't scared, pretending I hadn't thought about it all day at work. This time, it smiled before I did. Not a big smile, just a thin, careful stretch of lips, like it was testing how my face worked. I stood frozen, toothpaste dripping into the sink, watching something wear my expression like a borrowed mask. When I finally forced myself to smile back, its grin widened too far, pulling at the corners like rubber about to snap. After that, it started doing things on its own, tilting its head, raising its eyebrows, lifting its mouth silently when I wasn't speaking. I stopped using the bathroom mirror and brushed my teeth in the kitchen, staring at the dark window instead. But windows started doing it too. Reflections followed me everywhere. Screens, spoons, car windows, black phone screens at night. Every surface slowly learning my face. One morning, I woke up with red marks along my cheeks, like someone had practiced smiling on me while I slept. That night, My reflection finally blinked. Once, slow, satisfied, like it didn't need to pretend anymore. That's the lane. That's your system. That's what keeps people locked in.